I think I should sing my theme song again it comes from The Wizard of Oz. If I only had a brain. All right.
Well,
I'm sorry.
I just came from the land of Oz.
You did?
Yeah, we moved here from Kansas City. We're in Chicago now. We moved back, actually. We were in the land of Oz for 25 years. So,
ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the Louis B. Free Radio Show, Brain Food from the Heartland. I love this, the Primetimer Guide to Streaming TV, the painless, and it's painless way to find your next great watch on Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, HBO Max, Hulu, Apple TV, Peacock, Paramount, and other popular streamers. I've got the author, my guest, Aaron Barnett. Aaron, good morning to you.
thank you.
So you just moved. It was a busy weekend for you.
Yeah, I didn't really plan it this way. I didn't want to be taking a long distance move at the same time that I was dropping a new book, but it just kind of worked out that way.
And the book's really new.
Yes, this is a premiere week for it, but tell you what, this has been, I should tell you, I dropped out of the professional TV watching business about 10 years ago. I had been a critic at the Kansas City Star for 15 years and was syndicated by newspapers. But I really felt like I had done all that was to be done on the TV beat. My wife and I wanted to do some history writing and some other things. So we went off and did that. And the only reason I'm back at this, Louis, is because of what's going on the TV landscape and the opportunity we had at Primetimer, which was a new site that launched 3 years ago, to help viewers make sense of this ever expanding and very confusing television landscape. And this book, therefore, even though it's just dropping this weekend, is quote unquote new, really is the culmination of the last 3 years of our efforts to help our readers get a handle on what is now just kind of one of their bigger unnecessary headaches, which is, what do I watch next?
What do I want? Yeah. It used to, again, we were talking age off air. I go back, not you, go back to a time where there were 3 stations and it went off at maybe 1 o'clock in the morning and came back on with a sunrise semester or something, they, a
Bishop
prayer
Sheen.
Yeah. And now, I'm reading these. It's funny because reading them out loud, I know this is going to sound dumb, but reading them out loud, it's like, of course, Netflix, but reading them out loud, I haven't read that out loud. And it's like, wow. And plus more.
Yep. We're right now at, when the book came out, and this is how rapidly things are changing. As we were writing the book, we separated out streaming world, which constitutes hundreds of boutique premium streamers, things that you pay money for every month, and will give you everything from, Arab language entertainment to British mysteries to art house films in America. And then there are literally thousands of ad-supported free streaming channels out there, the best known of which are things like IMDb TV and Tubi. But we pay a special attention to what we call the Big Nine. These are the 9 largest premium subscriber-supported streaming channels out there, and you name several of them, and they also include Apple TV Plus and Peacock and Paramount. But as we were going to press, we knew full well that there was a very good chance that by the time the book came out, it would already be obsolete, because the Big Nine would become the Big 8. And that is, in fact, what is about to happen, because Warner and Discovery have merged, and they have announced that they are going to take their separate streaming channels, HBO Max and Discovery Plus, and merge the content. It's going to become one channel. So now we're already down to a Big 8. But that is way more choices than we had just a few years ago, when it was basically Netflix, Hulu, and Prime Video.
Wow, it's changing so rapidly, and then we hear all the news about Netflix, and I don't get it all with revenue, and I don't get it all. You do, I don't. I'm going to ask you, how did you get into writing about TV shows? Were you?
It's a great story. And the one
Tell.
I never get tired of telling. By the way, you'll know some things going on behind us because, as you noted, we're moving, and so for those people who are watching rather than listening to our talk, I'm in my recording studio known as my car. But I've done some of my best interviews in a car. 30 years ago, I was back here where we're moving back to, Evanston, Illinois, and I was just a guy who was working a secretarial job, paying off some student loan debt, because that's what you should do, is pay off your student loan debt. And I was a big fan of late night television growing up. Johnny Carson was the man, but I also followed kind of all the things that were going on, and of course, like everyone in my generation, I was compelled to watch David Letterman. I mean, he was just a guy you could not avoid in the 1980s. He was redefining comedy. He was redefining late night television. He was giving the entire generation of stand-up comics a platform, and musicians. So when he got into the late night wars with Jay Leno, when he hopped over to CBS and essentially handed them a late night franchise, one they've never let go of and are now number one in that category, and NBC's number 3. And that goes right back to Letterman. You can thank him for that. I said, wouldn't it be great if we could use this new thing called the internet to collect all the news that's out there in print and that I hear on the radio and on TV, and put it in newsletter form and send it out to people. So Louis, my career began with an email newsletter 30 years ago. And it just happened to be that people at the Village Voice and other publications were very early subscribers to that work, and they picked it up. So I got in through a process that now is really the way in which people get into journalism, which is through writing on the internet.
That's incredible. That's a great story. I'm glad you shared that with us, Aaron. That's fascinating. Back to the early days, and what's interesting for me is I remember Johnny Carson. Obviously, what is the channel? Antenna TV runs them. I can't remember.
Oh, he's the star. He's the king of Antenna TV, and if people aren't aware of Antenna TV, we can get into this a little bit, but that's one of those side channels that broadcasters now have, basically to compete with streaming a little bit, because they were given in the 90s, they switched over from the old way of broadcasting to digital broadcasting. And one of the things this allowed them to do was not just put out network shows in high definition, but they were also given the opportunity to put 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 extra signals on that main signal, which a digital TV set could then decode and break into all these niches. And the most popular ones are retro niches. So there's a channel called Me TV. It's actually, I looked at the Nielsen ratings recently, and it's higher rated than most cable networks. I mean, more people are watching Me TV than watch HGTV. And Antenna TV is kind of second in that category behind Me TV. Really? And the absolute star of Antenna TV after all these years is a man who's been dead for 17 years and has not put out a TV show for over 30 years. Johnny Carson. Those 1 hour cut downs of the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson are still the most popular thing on Antenna TV.
I mean, Jack Benny, I'm not, there's a lot of shows on Antenna TV that I'm not fond of, but if I'm pacing around or whatever, and I'll put Johnny Carson on, sit for a few minutes and see who the guests are. And that's great. That's very, very entertaining. Right? Yeah. Yeah. It's like comfort food. Yeah. That's a good point. Comfort. It is. It takes me back to
and it's not just us. It's not just guys our age, Louis. I mean, there's
thank you. Wait, hold on, Aaron. Thank you for putting me in your youthful category. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that.
You're a lot closer to me than I am to most of the people I deal with at Primetimer. So I just read a story about kids who are millennials who are binging episodes of Friends and The Nanny and other shows on streaming TV because for them, those old 90s sitcoms represent that same kind of comfort quality, a simpler time before
That's
9/11,
interesting.
before pandemic, and before, and apparently there was a little spike once the war in Ukraine broke out. So people really do turn to these old retro TV shows as one strategy to cope with the stresses of today.
That's really that's very interesting. That is to think about that. I had not thought about it that way. I mean, I've always liked Turner Classic Movies. I like old movies. I've said this a lot on the show. I've got a friend who will say to me, Louis, have you ever seen them? I'll tell him, you got to watch this, or Grand Hotel's on, or Shop, whatever. And he'll say, have you ever seen a movie that was actually originally made in color? And by the way, when you get my age and you put Turner Classic Movies on, and it's like, wait a minute, that's not a class. And then you think, wow, wait a minute, that was almost 50 years ago. I guess it is.
Yeah. Nowadays, it's not just the movies that Ted Turner paid to have colorized that are considered classics. Yeah.
And I've got to say, wonderful. And by the way, Meg Nosra, congratulations on your recent award. She says her daughter loves Friends and How I Met Your Mother, and her daughter's
Yes.
13.
Yep.
13. That's surprising.
Well, we saw this a few years ago before streaming with the spike in Golden Girls repeats. And nobody, and the target viewer could not have possibly been sentient when the Golden Girls was originally taped. So yeah, these shows are actually, that's a good point. They're actually also capable of winning over new viewers. And by the way, this is kind of, you said you didn't kind of understand what was going on with all the numbers in Netflix. Let me just boil it down to you. Netflix thought that it could do TV its way. They saw themselves as a disruptor. They drank their own Kool-Aid for a long time, and they believed that their output didn't stink, and that they could put out and that they could they could just churn through shows, put them on for 10 episodes, cancel them, move on, sign every producer in town to deals, burn bridges with talent agents and whatnot. But now their subscriber growth is shrinking. And in fact, I think they actually may have lost subscribers in this last earnings call they did. Bottom line, they're coming back down to earth in a hurry. Their stock has dropped 35% or something like that. And they're having to reckon with the fact that they're in the television business. And the way that you succeed long run in the television business is to create a franchise that has wide-ranging appeal as possible. And that was something that the old networks were very good at doing, and that the streamers are now going to have to learn how to do as well, because a good show, a really classic show, it's 1 in 100, maybe even 1 in 500. But whoever has that show gets an eternal ATM, an endless license to print money, because not just the viewers who grew up with that show, but future generations of viewers will enjoy and watch and patronize that show.
Oh, it's fascinating. Now I'm getting all the emails. People are asking me to ask you about Ozark.
Yep.
Any thoughts?
Just wrapped up. I'm behind on Ozark. All I can say is Netflix better hope that David Manson and the producers who created Ozark and sustained it through 4 outstanding seasons come back to them. I should point out that the number 1 show right now on television isn't Ozark, despite all the buzz it gets. It's Yellowstone. And this is a show that was developed for cable by a network that was not in streaming. So they let the streaming rights, this is how little they valued it. They thought, well, we'll just make our money on cable. They let another streaming service owned by a rival, Peacock, take the streaming rights. It's now that streaming channel's number 1 show. It's Kevin Costner playing a Montana rancher, kind of a dark side Sopranos, what have you, sort of angle to it. So it's kind of like Ozark, but I would say it's more warm. It's kind of funny thing to say about Yellowstone, but it's more big-hearted. It's got more female empowerment on it. It's just a bigger, fuller, richer show. and I'm not just saying that because I grew up in Montana. I really think Yellowstone is an outstanding show, and that's built for the long run. I mean, I don't think anybody's going to stop. I don't think Paramount's going to stop doing episodes of Yellowstone. They're going to hope to get back on their Paramount channel, but streaming channel. But that's the kind of show Netflix needs to be developing. Ozark's done after 4 episodes. Grace and Frankie, the comedy that's kind of aimed at our demographic, just ended on Netflix, and they did 92 episodes. That is a record for Netflix. 92 episodes. Frasier was just getting started. Cheers was just clearing its throat. Seinfeld was, just starting to become popular. 92 episodes. So Netflix is not very good at growing shows into these big, huge franchises, and they need to do that, or they're going to keep losing share.
Wow, I've got a few questions I want to ask you, but again, ladies and gentlemen, you can go to primetimerguide.com, primetimerguide.com. Of course, I've got the links up, but go directly to Primetimer Guide. The Primetimer Guide to streaming TV. Let me do this for the camera a minute. The painless way to find your next great watch. Erin Barnett, the author, is my guest. A couple of things so I don't forget, and I'm running all around here trying to figure it, not running. But when I've got to say, I was delighted to see one of the shows, La Casa de Papel, that the Money Heist. Now, Money Heist, I hope you don't mind. I'm going all over the place. Are you cool with that?
Yeah, I am. Money Heist is a great show. Go ahead.
I loved it. I just have to tell you, I got really into, and I don't always get, I'm not one to binge watch. I don't sit well. I don't sit down well. I don't stay put well. I don't focus well on some shows that are really long. But I got into that and absolutely loved it. Then I was able to see the film about how it became an international hit.
Sure.
And I only watched I didn't watch the whole thing of that. I wasn't that interested, but it was interesting to see how it grew.
So
that was a big one for them.
To give Netflix its due, right? This was the first television company in the world to turn on the lights in 190 countries overnight and start producing shows in, I think, about, 56, 57 of them, and come up with a brilliant idea of marketing shows from one country to viewers in other countries. This is something that was always very painful to do in the traditional TV market. You would see shows like The Office be adapted. Going back even further, Steptoe and Son, a very popular British comedy, became All in the Family here in the United States. Formats like The Honeymooners have been done in a lot of countries, but it's just, you until very recently, you did not have the example of a television franchise that did well in one country being marketed to multiple other countries and being successful there. And that's because in the digital era, where you've got these large catalogs of thousands of titles, a show doesn't have to get boffo ratings to be making money for the streaming channel. It's that long tail theory of digital commerce. And it really pays off for shows like Money Heist, which, yes, I mean, we actually found out about through my wife's daughter and our son-in-law were the first ones to discover it in our family. And then our forum participants at primetimer.com, because that's our secret ingredient in the Primetimer Guide, is we've included hundreds of comments from our Primetimer readers, because they're often, TV viewers and fans of shows are often the best people to tell you if a show is going to be right for you, if a show is going to be appropriate for you. And these guys really love the some of the peculiar characters in it. They love the mixture of violence and sexiness and offbeat comedy. They loved Money Heist.
I did also. Ladies and gentlemen, again, the Primetimer Guide to Streaming TV. You will love this. You can go to primetimerguide.com, primetimerguide.com, and primetimer.com. Also, Erin Barnett Barnhart is the author and my guest. I'm talking too fast. Bridgerton.
Yeah, Bridgerton.
Okay. Any thoughts on that?
Well,
I haven't seen it.
So Shonda Rhimes, who is one of the Hollywood's bona fide super super producers, created Grey's Anatomy, Station 19, and several other hit shows for ABC, signed, as many people did, a big production deal with Netflix. And her first big effort in this space for streaming was a take on Regency England. So it's a fancy costume thing, but it has people of color in it. It's got very modern sounding dialogue and situations. And, it was a big hit right away. And even though kind of like the sexiest guy from season 1 didn't come back for season 2, people have flocked to the show, and it is the season 2 of Bridgerton is the most watched series, I believe, in the history of Netflix.
Wow. I didn't know. Yeah, I'm out of the loop on some of this. How do you keep up with all this? I mean, I'm just amazed, and you've got it all. You've got all the facts. Aaron, how do you do it?
Well, I have to be honest about this and clear that when I left the beat, it was already becoming a little overwhelming keeping track of all the shows. There were like 200 scripted shows and hundreds of unscripted shows, reality, documentary, that kind of thing, on TV at the time I left. That was in 2012. When I came back to the beat, thanks to Netflix and Hulu and Prime Video and all those other scripted players now in the arena, the number of scripted shows in production had more than doubled, and was rapidly approaching 500 scripted shows. And then, I don't know, close to 2,000 unscripted shows, a lot of television. And what I noticed was that no TV critic was able to keep track of it anymore.
Sure.
There was no bodily way to watch and absorb and think about and write about and cover all of the shows on television. So what I have spent my time at primetimer.com doing is not only writing criticism, but curating criticism, curating other critics' takes on shows. We've got a talented staff and a lot of great contributors who also contribute reviews and takes on shows. And so we cover the waterfront about as broadly as any publication that's ever covered television. And we're only about television, as opposed to a lot of entertainment sites now that divvy their staff up between video and gaming and other pursuits. So what I have done with this Primetimer guide is curate the reviews of many critics. And my contribution is to say, okay, if you like this type of show, then here's another show you would like.
Yeah, I was
that
section.
Right? I was out running.
I love that section. I love that section. If you like certain one blacklist, and you've got the other ones. If you and Bridgerton's in there. I'm sorry. I love that.
No, that's true. We've got it. If you like this, you'll like that. And we've also got thematically organized things. So if you like true crime, we've got a long list of true crime shows, and of course they go across the big 9, and even include a couple of boutique streamers like AMC Plus and BritBox, because again, Netflix won't tell you what's good on Hulu, right? That their algorithm doesn't want to tell you what's good on Hulu, even if it knew, it wouldn't tell you. So that's what we see our job is doing, is to curate across all of the categories. I was out running today with a woman who said that she really liked Atlanta. She said, at first it was like all the cuss words, but then, I got to realize that the creator of the show, Donald Glover, he's really creative. He's really a genius. I said, absolutely. She says, and I realized that, and she named one of the characters on the show. I don't even know what he's there to do. Is he just like a side man? What does he do? He does nothing, but I can't stop watching him. And I said, well, if you like that, then you'll like another a show on Hulu called Woke. And because the sidekicks on that show are equally like worthless, but they're absolutely essential to the show. They're there to be foils. And I think a lot of great situation comedies have people like, what does he do for a living? Who knows? But they really play an essential role to the comedy. So that's kind of what I'm there to do, is like, if you like this, you'll like that.
Yeah. I found that great in the book, The Primetimer Guide to Streaming TV, the painless way to find your next great watch. Aaron Barnhart is the author and my guest. You can go to primetimerguide.com. You can go to primetimer.com for more information. The other thing that you did that I thought was really great is you sorted by the streaming service, because that's one of the things people hear about something and they don't know where it is, or they don't know what else is on theirs unless you spend an awful lot of time looking and looking and looking. And I'm sure some people do, and maybe they enjoy that. But I loved your, can I say shortcuts?
Yeah. We loaded up the back end of the book with resources. The heart of the book, as you can see there, is that we've curated about 1,000 shows from really mostly the last 5 years. You'll find some classics in there, but mostly there are shows that are on streaming TV. And a big criterion for me was, it's one of those things that at the time, a number of critics wrote about it, said it was really a good show, and then it went by, because the flow of content now is relentless. And there's always some shiny object that somebody wants to tell you, oh, you got to watch that.
Yeah.
And if you've ever gone through that ritual where you ask people, your friends on social media, what's good to watch, and you get deluged with suggestions from 6 different directions, you know what I mean. So my job was really to curate those in such a way that you could find what you wanted to watch, that without a minimum amount of fuss.
Yeah.
That said, this is a very small selection of the total amount of television that's out there. And so there are a couple of good online guides I refer people to. One is called Real Good, ReelGood.com. And another is called Just Watch. And these are both basically search engines for all streaming content, TVs and movies over the years. So you can find out what channel something is on. But the reason we included those things in the back of the guide, Louis, is because we wanted, if you go onto your Hulu screen and you scroll for half an hour, which unfortunately people do, because it's kind of frustrating, they will see probably maybe a couple hundred of shows go by them. But the average streamer has thousands of titles on it. So I thought the very least we could do was take the 1,000 shows in our guide and sort them out several different ways. And one of the ways, as you say, is to sort out by streamer and genre.
And you did a fabulous job and in the Primetimer Guide to Streaming TV. And I loved when you would do the review, if it won an Emmy, you'd have like the little image of the award,
the trophy.
The trophy. Thank you. Now I know, now I get it, that because I've always wondered these days why everybody says, I'm so busy. Everybody's so impatient out in the world. They're trying to get home so that they can go through. This will help them be more patient, the Primetimer Guide to Streaming TV, because they won't have to search so much. But that is something, with all the different options. And I think you wrote about Friends in the book also. I mean, there's so many shows that you can look at and read a few paragraphs about, and then figure out if it's good for you. So people actually go spend like a half hour looking for a show.
Yeah. They've done surveys on this with other consumer products. I remember there was a well-known one, I think back in the 90s, where they would set up a stand at a supermarket in front of the jam and jelly section. And they would offer people 25 different types of jellies in one of these.
Wow.
And then in a second store, they would set up a stand with 5 jams and jellies. And they found that people who were offered 5 jams or jellies bought more jam and jelly than people were offered 25, because they froze when they saw those 25 different varieties. They couldn't choose, and ultimately their brain went zit, zit, does not, and they moved on. And this has been called the tyranny of choice. The fact that in our consumer culture we have so much abundance that we don't hardly know what to do. We are not Robin Williams in the supermarket in Moscow and the Hudson. We are, we're more like Frankenstein's zombie. Like we just gotta, we just got to get out of there. And that is, I think, what people feel like when they sit down and start scrolling through their streaming services. And especially if there's somebody else in the room, and now you got to negotiate between two people what to watch. It's just a hard thing.
That's why they need the prime timer guide. That's why. I know that and you're good time wise, right?
Yes.
Sure. Okay. Because may I say it? What we were talking about off air? You okay if I mention that?
Oh yeah, go right ahead.
We were talking off air, and I asked Aaron what his time frame was. He said, I'll be there as long as you'll keep me. And I'm thinking, now my audience said, watch out, watch out. No, I'll be respectful of your time. I know you're moving and things, but cutting the cable, which is we hear that. And again, I would recommend this for anybody that watches, but my brothers and sisters that are seniors, I think it's especially good, the book.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Cutting the cord, or as you say,
I'm sorry. See,
yeah.
I don't even say it right. I don't even say it right.
But it's basically cutting the cable, right? You've got this coax cable that comes into your house, and it's from either a cable or satellite provider, and it's been coming into your house for years. You don't even look at the bill because you don't want to know anymore how much it is. But over the past,
a fortune.
Yep,
it's very expensive.
A fortune. Over the past few years, there has been a growing movement of people who have said, I'm not going to do this any longer. And they've cut the cord and they've gone to regular, what we call antenna TV or terrestrial TV, and then one or two or more streaming channels. So they get local TV and they get streaming. And that for them is good enough for them, and they don't need the cable. And this phenomenon of cord cutting, at first people said, well, this is, just for people who want to go back and put an antenna on the roofs, and who wants to do that anymore. But you don't have to put an antenna on your roof anymore. A lot of these window mount antennas are perfectly good. We're going to put one up in our place here when we move in. But B, the variety of things that you can get over the air, as we were talking about with substations like MeTV and Antenna TV, is more diverse than ever. And C, streaming world has exploded. So everybody who has a cable channel pretty much now also operates a streaming service. So Discovery is the owner of not just the Discovery Channel, but HGTV and TLC and so many other popular cable channels. And they put all that same content on their Discovery Plus channel, which is soon going to be merged with HBO Max. So you'll be able to subscribe to that. And even though if you were to subscribe to all these, it'd still be a fair amount of money every month. For most people, that plus their internet would be less than whatever they're paying to their cable provider right now for cable TV or satellite TV and internet. And that is why people are doing it. Furthermore, they get the enjoyment of an on-demand experience with streaming TV. They don't have to set the DVR anymore. They don't have to be in front of a TV at a certain time. A lot of people prefer that, working that way. And so it's just a better viewing experience that costs them less money. What's not to like about cutting the cord?
Yeah. When again, a lot of people, when I've talked with folks about this, you say, well, I still have to have my cord for the internet connection. And yeah, but you can minimize, just have your internet connection. I understand there's some other ways to get the internet, through different devices, and that's way beyond my.
Yeah, there's Verizon's now offering internet, home 5G internet service in the community where I live. But there's also there's a fiber company that was big out east called RCN, and they're now aggressively moving into our area. And so for $35 a month, I'm getting all the internet I can. Yeah. And the thing that people don't maybe realize is that streaming TV is usually not that much of a bandwidth hog. Even if you have two people in the house that are watching things at the same time, typically that's not going to stress your anything over about 100 or 200 megabit internet connection. I think I'm going to be paying for 400 and getting that kind of for $35 a month. So that's going to be
$35 a month. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
So, competition driving costs down, competition driving variety up.
Yeah, that's great. And the competition, they need the competition. Again, where I live, the service is great. It's very reliable. It's just it's very costly. And one of the things that I understand is that the sports channels for the cable companies are the most expensive from
Yep.
what I'm told. And I watch zero. If you surveyed 10 years or whatever, as long as I've had a cable, longer than that, ESPN might have been on if I rolled over on the remote. And again, I'm not against it, but I'm paying for it. That's part of the problem. Aaron
Yep.
Barnhart, correct? You're paying for all these channels, and some of them, like in my case, you never watch. I never go to sports channels.
The whole cable business model revolved around the idea that you pay for a bundle of channels. Your cable company then turns around and pays everybody a monthly fee based on what they've negotiated with that company. So at the low end of the thing, you have C-SPAN, which nobody watches except me, and that's just
me too.
Good.
I watch C-SPAN.
But that's pennies per month. That's pennies per month per customer, whether they watch it or not.
Okay.
And that goes all the way up. And then most of them tend to be well under $1 per customer per month. So if all cable channels were that way, I think cable TV might be kind of still a sustainable business enterprise. But no, all ESPN years ago, and I think Disney kind of broke the cable business model ultimately, because what Disney, the owner of ESPN, chose to go out and negotiate all of these expensive rights deals so that they could have Monday Night Football and they could have basketball, and you couldn't watch there's certain things like college football bowl games and Final Four tournaments that you cannot watch if you don't have ESPN. And so all of those things add up to and of course they turned it into an arms race. So then Turner, owner of TBS and TNT, also got into it, and NBC to some deal as well. And they just pass those costs right on to consumers. But what if you're one of the consumers that doesn't watch the sports? Doesn't matter. It comes as part of the bundle. So a typical cable bill, if it's $80 a month, I will bet you that 25 to 30 bucks of that is going just to sports to cover the cost of these huge contracts that the networks used to basically charge advertisers for. So that really changed things.
It really changed things. And again, cutting that cord, you can read more in the book and go to the websites, by the way, the Primetimer Guide to Streaming TV. I love the book. Absolutely love the book, Aaron Barnhart's book. And again, you can go to .com also for more information. People are emailing and asking, what are you eager to watch? So I'm going to condense it or put a couple of them together. What do you can't wait to get moved in so you can watch what?
Well, so first of all, we were talking about comfort food and comfort TV. And so I always like to name my three favorite shows out there. And two of them are on a lot of critics' lists. And the third one has made a real comeback for me in recent years. And, if I get in a place where I can have a piece of art behind me when I do a Zoom call, it's going to be of this show. And that's MASH. I just go back to that show time and time again. It is so well written. It's so evenly balanced between serious and humorous. Some people said it got kind of preachy in the later years. Sure. Okay, fine. But, in the overall scheme of things, it never forgot how to be a situation, a war comedy. And think about that. It's just such an oxymoron. Most war it's not Sergeant Bilko. This is a real war and real comedy came together in MASH in a way that it never has. And you think about it, they had a lot of cast churn on that. McLean Stevenson was replaced by Harry Morgan. Wayne Rogers was replaced by Mike Farrell. Larry Linville was replaced by David Ogden Stiers. Gary Berghoff, Radar, left, was replaced by Klinger. And despite all of that, the show just kept getting more popular. And when it went off and did that 2.5-hour finale on one night in 1983, more people tuned into that, 103 million people, than have ever watched any episode of television ever. The only other shows that have ever gotten over 100 million viewers all had the words super and bowl in the title. MASH was a cultural phenomenon of its time. And to me, it is the classic show of all time.
Wow, that's anything else? Cool for another? Aaron, are you cool for another 5-10 minutes or no?
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay, well, give me 1 second. You're listening to the We Be Free Radio Show, Brain Food from the Heartland. Copyright Be Free Radio Limited, 2022, produced by the lovely Ms. Bunnyface in cooperation with White Rabbit Productions. Go ahead.
I put Mad Men up there as one of my other two, and of course David Simon's great gritty drama series about urban America, The Wire. David's got a new and by the way, if you're talking about things I want to watch, I haven't gotten through all the episodes yet of David's new series, which is called We Own This Town, and a lot of people are describing it as the 6th season of The Wire.
I saw that. That's your most recent blog piece.
Yep.
He goes at
primetimer.com. He goes back to Baltimore, and the series of events this time no novelist could have made up. It actually surrounds an actual police scandal, one of the worst scandals in American policing history, which is, I guess, saying something. But the just dozens of Baltimore police officers and their higher ups were either explicitly or complicitly involved in stealing guns, running drugs, doing all kinds of illegal activities. And the reason they got away with it was these were all members of an elite force called the Gun Trace Task Force, which was the shining star of the Baltimore Police Department through some pretty rough years. They were making the arrests, they were making the seizures, but there was just a ton of corruption going on behind the scenes. And so they came back to that to sort of dramatize that account. But it's of course set in the exact same setting that the 5 seasons of The Wire were. But it's a different kind of show. And, you know, one of the things that we talk about in streaming TV is episode bloat. Episode bloat and format creep are kind of like the two big problems right now in streaming TV. Episode bloat.
Explain it. Yeah, please.
So format creep is when a show that starts out as a limited series like Big Little Lies suddenly becomes a series and they do a second season of it. Or, you know, Killing Eve did 4 seasons and everybody thought it was really just a horrible idea. Then you have episode bloat, and that's where a show that has maybe 4 good episodes in it gets booked for 6. You know, and there are a lot of shows.
I think we've all seen those.
Watched the show and said there are about 2 or 3 episodes too many in that series, and that's because the way that the streaming model works is viewer loyalty. So you keep your subscription to Netflix because you keep watching Netflix. And the way you keep watching Netflix is you don't turn off autoplay, and it keeps serving up episodes of shows, and you keep binging them. And then when you get done with it, it says, hey, if you like that show, here's another show we have that you'll want to watch.
I love how you have the pairings pairs well with, you know, like wine pairings and different. I love that. You've got a
yeah, we're in the guide, we're saying that a show pairs well with another show. Yeah, I mean, it's a way to be helpful across platforms. Again, when we say that if you like a show on Netflix, we try to pair it with something on a different streaming service, because that's something that the streamer's not going to do for you with their algorithms.
Yeah, and I love that. You get so much information, and you can look by which streaming service you have. I love, oftentimes, I've got to say, I'm going to bust myself. Well, after I've read a book, you know, I pass it on. If I interview the author, might have some pages turned down or some notes in it, but I like to pass it on to someone else if I'm not going to read it again. This one's going to be so worn in such a short period of time. I'm serious. I love this because I don't like to, Aaron, I don't like to search and look. I don't want to say I don't have, I'm hyper surprised, right? Nobody's surprised about that. I don't want to sit and I don't want to say I don't have the patience. It's not me to sit and look. What about this? Let me watch the trailer. What about this? Let me watch the trailer. I can't do that. I should say I don't do that. And what I
like to hear that.
I'm serious. Well, that's me. I'm serious for this. I can look and I can read a little bit about it, understand a little bit about it, find out what's, or find something that I like and find what you suggest to watch. If you like this, you'll like this.
You know,
That's been great for me. That's been great for me.
we're in the so I'm moving back to the Chicago area, and of course, I always remember how fun it was to get the new edition of the late Roger Ebert's movie yearbook, his annual video guide. And it's just this big fat doorstopper of a book, but there were just all these fresh reviews of the new things that were out in video, and then some classic Ebert things. And that, you know, or you know, any kind of an almanac or video guide that would come out every year or so, there's just kind of a feeling of, oh yeah, let's see what's fresh in here. And that's a kind of experience that, I'm sorry, I've never gotten from an app. And we wanted people to have that same feeling, like this is a video guide. My publisher, Jed Rosenzweig, says, yes, this is a book you want to keep near the toilet. I say, no, this is a book you want to keep near the remote. Wherever you like to keep your paper reading. I'm delighted to hear you say that, because that was absolutely one of our intentions with this book.
It is, and I mean it sincerely. I also love, very quickly, I love how you can look up. I mean, the index of names is just, you know, this book is over 400 pages, and it's fantastic. I've got to tell you, one of my favorite shows ever you've got in here, Fawlty Towers. That's one where they didn't make enough of them. I mean, I know all the episodes, and I can probably recite most of the lines in the show. It's become part of who I am. Don't
talk about the war.
Yeah. I did once, but I think I got away with it all right. That's what he said. Yeah. It doesn't matter what time he makes it. It doesn't matter what time.
7 episodes. There were 7 episodes of Fawlty Towers. That's it. And they just got played over and over and over. I think it's one of the only 2 classic British Britcoms we felt compelled to put in the book. The other one was Are You Being Served, which is a completely different kind of British Are You Being Served. Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's just great. And kind of some hidden messages about class in British society, kind of always embedded in there, which I kind of liked that aspect of it. But yeah, I mean, we did try to include some classic stuff, because I think that's another thing that streaming allows you to do, right? You don't have to hunt up videotapes. You don't have to check stuff out of your library. And you don't have to pay for things. Many of these things are now included with your premium streaming subscription. And a number of them are starting to be available on these free services like Pluto TV and Tubi and IMDb TV, which is owned by Amazon, right? So Amazon has a ton of content, right? So like Amazon did the Bosch detective show that we all liked for Prime Video. Well, now they're doing a spinoff called Bosch Legacy that's starting this week, but it's over on their free channel, IMDb TV. So that's a very interesting kind of development now, that in some ways streaming TV may eventually go back to being more like regular TV, where you don't pay for the stream, you pay with your time watching commercials.
Which I certainly don't mind doing, because it gives me an opportunity to jump up and do something, especially when they show how long the break is. Up in the corner. If it's like a minute and a half, I know what I can do in a minute and a half.
Don't count on that staying around forever.
Because I want you to watch the commercials. I get that.
Yep.
I get that. Aaron Barnhart, you're a blast. I thank you for suffering my madness for so long. I'd love to continue the discussion once you get moved in. The Primetimer Guide to Streaming
my pleasure.
TV. And again, the websites you want to tell us?
Yeah, you can visit every day and get our newsletters at primetimer.com. Primetimer.com. And there's an ad there to buy the guide, to buy or check out the guide. But you can get the Primetimer Guide to Streaming TV anywhere books are sold, or at primetimerguide.com.
And it just dropped. So get them. And again, as I always like to say, please try to buy it as close to home as possible to keep those booksellers in business. Yet it does. How does Amazon get a book to you the next day? I don't understand that. But I mean, are they reading our minds? Is Alexa always listening? I guess so.
I guess so.
Yeah.
That's what they say anyway.
Always listening. You're a blast. Thank you. I hope it wasn't too much of an inconvenience. I'd love to do it again. Thanks so
Pleasure.
much.
Yes.
Folks, again, I love this guide. I absolutely love the guide, and I'm going to use it more and more. And I will